California chef has had a close connection with Vietnamese food many years before he came and made his name popular amongst the fans of Vietnamese food in Ho Chi Minh City. With the skills of a professional chef, knowledge and passion for Vietnam, he has created new tastes for Vietnamese cuisine. More than just pleasing his customers, he dreams of sharing efforts to make Vietnamese food a form of art in the world. He is Geoffrey Deetz.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Talk Vietnam. Here's a quick introduction now about our guest for this week's episode. His name is Geoffrey Deetz. He's a chef that hails from the United States, and he has had some 30 years of experience in cooking Vietnamese food. 10 of those were actually spent living here in Vietnam. He has had tremendous experience and also has a lot of opinions about Vietnamese food to share, and also about Vietnamese beverage as well. So he's here today in our studio to share with us his stories, and also do stay tuned later on as he has a small surprise that he would like to share with you. Hello, Jeff. Thank you very much for coming to our studio today. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So tell me, how did you become an expert in Vietnamese cuisine?
I would say that I have a huge passion for Vietnamese food, and maybe not many Western people have been associated with Vietnamese food at the level I've been my whole life, because it was some 30 years ago when I was head chef at a New Orleans style restaurant in California. And I was, my staff around me were all Asian. I had an Asian sous chef, Asian dishwashers, Asian salad preps, and Asian cooks. But living in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was all types of Asian cultures all around me all the time, from Tibet, Cambodia, China, Japan, and apparently Vietnam. Now, at this time, I wasn't really aware of Vietnamese food. One day, I was cooking, and the staff walked in with a sandwich. And I looked over, and I asked this young boy, I said, "What are you eating?" And he said, "Well, I'm eating a sandwich. Would you like one?" So he handed me one of his sandwiches, and I proceeded to take a bite of the first Vietnamese food I've ever had in my life, and that was a banh mi thit. And at that point, the flavor, the experience of the pickles and the pate and the head cheese and the vegetables were unlike any sandwich I've ever had in my life. And it was at that moment that I needed to know more about Vietnamese food.
What happened after that?
Well, I went to my sous chef, and his name was Vo Chu Ba. And he became my mentor. He was probably in his early 40s, and now here's his boss, this kind of wild, uncontrolled, partying 22-year-old kid that would play with food and throw pans around the kitchen and just be basically 22. And I was his boss, and he was a very reserved, very professional Vietnamese man with a family, with 2 children and a wife, who on his spare time owned his own restaurant. And so we decided to come up with a friendship where we would exchange food with each other and teach each other.
Exactly. So he could be considered, your first bridge to Vietnamese cuisine.
Yeah.
He taught you about the kind of necessary ways to start up Vietnamese cuisine. What was the first dish that you made?
The first dish that we made together was bun sao, and attached
the
to
sizzling
crepe, bun sao,
crepe. Yep.
Which became my passion for a few years. I fell in love with bun sao, and it was the first dish I learned to say. So when I came to Vietnam years later, I would meet people and say the word bun sao. Oh, I love bun sao, and they were so surprised I knew just one dish. What Vo would do is he would, on our spare time, on our a break between lunch and dinner, he would have one of his friends that has a Vietnamese restaurant that was either closed or quiet in the middle of the day, and he would set up a dish for me to go and eat. For example, the first time was the bun sao. We went to a restaurant, and they unlocked the door, opened it up, and there on the table was bun sao. He had everything there, all the herbs, the fish sauce, the bun sao, and we would sit down and we would eat this, and he would talk to me for an hour about what makes the perfect bun sao, how thin it should be, how many yellow bean, how many bean sprouts, the pork, the shrimp, and especially for me was the fish sauce, the nuoc cham, because that was the glue that brought all the elements together into one taste. And I had no idea, even years to come, it took many years living in Vietnam also to understand the importance of the dipping sauce to Vietnamese food. And it was at that time with the bun sao that was the first introduction to fish sauce to me.
How did you come to Vietnam? Because we mentioned that you've kind of been here for more than 10 years now.
Right. Well, my My mentor, my teacher about the food, Vo, his dream was to take me to Vietnam, but unfortunately he passed away before that time came. It was 1999 actually when I first came.
How was this first experience?
Well, of course, everyone loves the traffic. You know, you come in and you know, it's like I tell people, you can close your eyes and walk across the street, nobody will ever hit you. If you open your eyes and react, you'll get hit every time. So the first thing was that. The second was the street food and seeing food that I saw in restaurants available on the street, and better quality and better smell and better taste, and it was right there. The people that made it were handling it. They went to the market in the morning, they put it in their cart, they wheeled it out, and they sold it. This was a huge attraction to me. I fit right in. In fact, I fit in so well, I was able to actually cook that day. And what I did is I looked around the market and I noticed the soft shell crabs, and they were live and fresh. And this is something you only get 2 times a year in America when the season.
Very luxurious.
Very luxurious, yeah. And there they are, cheap and beautiful and fresh. And my love for the banh mi is still in my head, the sandwich. So I see a crab and I see the banh mi and I see a lady frying tofu. And I think a few years ago she stopped, but she was sitting there on a wok, sitting on a small chair, frying tofu. I start having an idea that I want to make a sandwich. And so
right there, in the middle of the market.
I decide I want to make a sandwich. So I talk to my friend, can you ask her if I can use her oil for a few minutes? I went outside, I looked up and down the street. Of course, there's a banh mi cart right there. I go over there, I ask for 8 banh mi with no meat, just banh mi rao and vegetable and pickle. I buy the sandwiches, I come back into Ben Thanh, I buy the crab, I get the flour from the tempura, I buy a beer, I get a bowl somewhere and I mix it, and I get the crab, and I fry the crabs right there.
You must have attracted a big crowd.
Yeah, I think at that time there was about 50 people.
50 people
standing
all
around, talking and looking at this strange foreigner. And, you know, 10 years ago was different. I mean, now foreigners are very normal to see them in all aspects of Vietnamese life here. Mm-hmm. But then it was very different, and there was very few cars in Ho Chi Minh City at that time. And after frying the crab, I made the sandwiches, cut them up, passed them around, and just stood up and walked out with a big smile on my face with the sandwich. I felt loved. I felt as if they would take me in their house and give me their last bowl of rice. I mean, literally, I fit. I belonged here. So I decided to find a way to come back here and dive into Vietnamese food beyond what I learned in California.
Now tell me, how did Black Cat begin? Black
Cat was a small space around the corner in District 1 from the first restaurant that I set up with the new couple. And it was basically a space that nobody could do business in. There was several restaurants that would go in there and close, a bakery, and people were saying it's the address, it's 13, nobody can do business in there. Everything, the feng shui, the feng shui is not good, you know, nobody can make business here.
And then to top it off, you named it Black Cat.
That's right. I have no love for cats, just so you know. I mean, I love animals, but...
In a place that was number 13, you named it Black Cat, which is also considered a bad symbol.
That's right.
In Vietnam.
Yeah, my feeling was that 2 unluckies will make a lucky.
We would love to see Black Cat. So in the following part, let's follow us now to the kitchen of Black Cat and see how Jeff goes into action with all of his other employees.
Hidden on a quiet lane in District 1 of Ho Chi Minh City, this is the renowned Black Cat, which has earned its rating as one of the top must-try spots. Job was given the empty space in 2005 with nothing more than an oven and a mixer. 6 years later, he's running the place with some 18 staff members.
Môi trường thì ở đây làm việc thì nó cũng là rất là thân thiện. Anh thì anh không có cho mình cái cảm giác anh là một cái người chủ, mà cũng giống như là một cái người anh. Ví dụ như anh xây dựng mình mỗi ngày một tí nó bộ hơn. Như biết anh 5 năm, nhưng mà sau mỗi năm thì mình sẽ học được những cái kinh nghiệm mới mẻ hơn. Anh luôn rất là sáng tạo và anh là cái người làm việc bằng trái tim.
The modest 2-story space gives Black Cat a cozy feel. It's a big gift wrapped up in a small package. Many would say, as the restaurant is famed for its giant burgers, chasing away any doubts about portion size. The menu is also packed with a range of Giob's other Vietnamese food inventions, which he has given very unique names.
Anh chef là người nước ngoài, mà mình thì là người Việt. Mà trong khi anh ấy trao đổi về cái hướng dẫn về các nấu ăn cho tôi, thì tôi coi như là thấy là món ăn rất là đa dạng. mình phải học rất là nhiều để coi như là gói hết cái tâm huyết vô trong các món ăn đó thì để cho nó được ngon.
Featuring a range of your all-time American favorite, plus a new take on Vietnamese cuisine, Black Cat was rated on CNN.com as one of the world's 10 restaurants you must experience.
Now that Black Cat, it later became just kind of starting off with just a mixer and an oven. And then later on, it became one of the best restaurants, the top 10 restaurants that you must experience, rated by CNN. How did it get there?
Well, I got a phone call from the U.S. consulate, and they said, hey, it was around Halloween. And they're like, hey, Jeff, Black Cat's on CNN. Black Cat's on CNN. I said, what are you talking about? CNN.com. Go check it out, Black Cat. I said, I know this Black Cat. It's Halloween. There's always stuff about Black Cats. They said, no, you're a restaurant. I'm like, come on. So I opened up and I checked the website. And what I had seen is there was a story on a particular food writer named Richard Sterling. That's the Indiana Jones of gastronomy. He's written many books. He's now living in Vietnam as well.
Vietnamese cuisine.
And about Vietnamese cuisine. His article was, in gist, was about what restaurants in the world are making impacts in their marketplace, are making changes, are doing something special. Not just opening up for elite customers to buy the most expensive wine and ingredients, or, you know, or the most trendiest place in town, or Hollywood. His article was about what are his favorite top 10 places in the world that he's traveled that he thinks are doing something special in the marketplace. And I was one of only 2 in Asia that was chosen. So he chose me primarily because of my approach on Vietnamese food and on Vietnamese sandwiches in particular, and trying to take them away from the banh mi thit, the banh mi gan, the banh mi su mai, into things like the kulo, the soft shell crab sandwich, and the banh mi cha ca, the fish, Hanoi fish.
Basically.
Putting a twist, but putting Vietnamese food in Vietnamese food, but just taking one and another that had never been put together. It's not fusion. You know, people like to say, oh, you cook fusion, or you do this, but no, I'm just taking Vietnamese food and rethinking it a little bit and giving it a new taste, a new approach.
A new concept, basically.
That's right. And food is about family and friends and fun, and people ask me for recipes, I write them down. I have no issue with it. I don't hide anything. You know, Vietnamese love to keep it very close and they don't want to show anybody. It's my secret recipe, but I'm not that way. Food tastes as good as the person cooking it.
Yep.
And their passion for it. I could give you a recipe for the same thing I cook. We will go out and make it. Yours will be completely different than mine.
Exactly.
Not better, not worse, just different.
Just different.
Yeah.
Each person has a way of kind of putting a twist and making food different. And
right.
You naming the food and making it kind of individual makes it closer to the people, people eating it as well.
It's an important thing because a business with a personality is a business with customers. A business with no personality is a business with no customers. And you need to have, I mean, unfortunately, chefs in Vietnam are not looked upon very well. They're looked as common workers. They're not looked as artists. They're not looked at the same as a singer or an actor. Whereas other places in the world, chefs are right there with singers and actors and, you know, everybody like that because they are artists, you know. Culinary arts is the art of creating something with your hands, both visual and edible. So not only do you have to look at the food, you have to eat it. Not only do you have to eat it, you have to not die from it as well. So I mean, you won't die looking at a picture, but you could die eating somebody's food. So it comes with a strange responsibility, this kind of art form. And I think other countries have realized what it takes to be a chef. You have to be a demanding manager. You have to have people skills. You have to be a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. You have to know how to get the best out of people while pushing them differently. You have to be able to cook food.
So tell me more about Black Cat. Who are your customers?
Over the years, I now am about 60% Asian or Vietnamese and 20% Japanese, and then the rest are maybe expats that live here or tourists. But actually the majority of my customers now tend to be Asian, with quite a large group of Vietnamese and Korean coming in. So in that aspect, that's probably my biggest success in Vietnam is to go from the expat customer to the Vietnamese customer.
Right.
Do it. Okay. Now we've go ahead and cook the fish. The herbs have wilted, the butter's separated, and now we have a nice little sauce to go with the fish. Cut the bread open, and at this point we're going to put the fish in. And then some of the cooked herbs along here, and down here is the sauce from the fermented rice, the butter, And the fish marinade, we just want to drip that right inside the sandwich like this.
In the story, we kind of saw some of the footages of a very special sandwich called bánh mì chả cá, which is, you know, very odd to Vietnamese people because you don't see that mixture. And as you said, you've done this before where you've taken specific Vietnamese ingredients and mixed it up with other Vietnamese ingredients. So tell us about this dish. How did it become?
Well, the way it became is fish sandwiches are very popular in the West. I mean, you see it at KFC, all these other places, you know, you eat fish sandwiches. Healthy fish sandwiches are, again, things that are popular all over the world. There's Portuguese restaurants in Macau and Portugal. They have just fish with curry on a nice bread. It's very simple. It's very delicious. So I thought, why not use the Hanoi chả cá, which I find to be one of the most tastiest dishes with the dill and the fermented rice and the turmeric, the way you cook chả cá, but put it in a Vietnamese sandwich and then put the herbs on top of the sandwich and then eat it. So wanting to put a variety of interesting Vietnamese sandwiches on my menu, that was one of the ones I wanted to do. And I was nervous because, you know, anytime you mess with Vietnamese food and a Vietnamese person comes in, they're not going to accept it. They're the most difficult customers.
They're going to be very critical.
Very critical of anything you do. Price, look, taste, everything. And when I first opened Black Hat, I remember this gentleman from Hanoi came down, and he was in a black suit and, you know, kind of black hair, a little disheveled. He looked very much from the just outskirts of Hanoi, and he came in, and businessman, he sat down, and he didn't know who I was, and I was sitting next to him, and I just kind of bit my lip and decided to sit there, and then he ordered a chả cá bánh mì. I'm like, oh, here I go. And I sat there sweating a little bit, and the sandwich came out, and he looked at it, and he proceeded to eat it as quickly as anybody I've ever seen it. He took a few bites, very suspicious, not sure he's going to like it, but he finished it and then ordered a second one. Oh. And it was at that time, if I could convince that man, that type of person, to try something that different.
And like it.
And order another one, then I'm on the right track. And that gave me the confidence to move forward.
That's awesome. So people like your bánh mì chả cá. Now I've noticed through the clip that most of your staff, actually all of your staff, are Vietnamese women.
That's right.
Why so?
Not to be sexist, because I think anybody deserves a right to work. There's lots of great men out there, don't get me wrong, because I do hire some wonderful guys. But the good thing about women is women tend not to smoke. They generally don't gamble. They don't drink too much. They don't call in with a hangover. They're clean. They're organized.
They're modest.
And they're very good cooks because they cook at home. And they're loyal, and they stay, and they work with you. So I've had great results working with women in Vietnam. Hi you all, welcome to my kitchen in District 4. I'm back in Ho Chi Minh City in my restaurant in District 4. This is where I make all the new creations for my restaurants in this kitchen. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a pan-seared, a pan-fried sea bass fillet. And on top, we're going to dump a ginger fish sauce, which is very traditionally Vietnamese, but I'm going to add the addition of passion fruit to give it a bit more complexity and modernize it a little bit. So we're going to use about a soup spoon of garlic. We're going to use about a soup spoon of chopped hot chili. Then, of course, the infamous Vietnamese fish sauce. We're going to add about 2 spoons of that. Then the passion fruit, which is, again, quite sour. We want to just scoop it. Use the seeds. Don't be afraid of them. Nothing's going to happen. And now we're going to want to add a little bit of lime juice for some really back acid. Now we're going to add the addition of our ginger, and we'll go ahead and just give this a quick mince. So we're going to go ahead and add just about half a rice bowl of sugar, and at this point you start to get a really nice kind of viscous sauce. Okay, now we're going to make a nuoc cham, prepared fish sauce for grilled pork chops eaten with broken rice. So we're going to make a nuoc cham with the basis of brown sugar. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use the grapefruit. We're going to use liquid brown sugar. So we're going to balance that. Again, about 2 spoonfuls of brown sugar. So we're going to go ahead and add equal parts of the grapefruit juice because it's not as sour as lime juice. Then we're going to go ahead and add again the garlic, some chopped chili. Use about 2 spoonsful of fish sauce. We're going to take some of the pomelo, and when you eat the rice, it'll burst in your mouth and give you a sense of cleanliness. I'm going to stir that up. And now we get this nice kind of strange color actually for a nuoc cham in Vietnam because generally you won't see brown sugar.
Does your family, going back and back now, before you became a chef, does your family have a culinary tradition? Did you cook from an early age?
Well, my father was a very famous anthropologist, and so him being the type of work he did meant he was very social. So we had people, very famous people, Allen Ginsberg, Bob Dylan, famous writers, all kinds of people would come to my house when I was a child to have parties on the weekend because my dad was so famous and he was so unique in the way he thought about history and the things he proved. So he attracted very artistic, very famous people around us.
Celebrities.
Yeah, so I grew up in a household with always 10 or 15 people there, plus I have 9 brothers and sisters. So giving on a daily basis, there's 20 to 30 people at my house. So it's time to cook dinner or time to cook breakfast. So of course, all of us have to go in the kitchen and cook. So at age 5 years old, I fell in love with cooking. I just, it was going in the kitchen, whether it was frying chicken or making biscuits, or at 11 years old, creating new food to try it on my poor father's students and see what they thought, use them as guinea pigs. It was a very early love for food. First restaurant, yeah.
Also
so
already,
17.
wow.
Yeah,
at
on
a
my
very early age.
12th birthday party, I cooked a 12-course Chinese banquet for my birthday. So that's what I do for my birthday.
Come to my birthday. Let's eat a lot of food. I'll cook 12 dishes. That's a 12 course.
12 years old, yeah.
Yeah.
11, 12 years old, I was a little kid.
That's amazing. Do you find that being a chef, I mean, it's not an easy career?
No, it's very hard. And in fact, it's long hours. You work on holidays. You work on Christmas, you work on Tet, you work on New Year's, you work on holidays.
Because basically people can eat anytime.
They all go out, yeah. Everybody goes out and you're there taking care of them. So you give up that. But the thing about being a chef is that you create something on the spot and you get immediate gratification right there and then. Someone either hates it or they like it. Of course, sometimes they don't like it and it's like someone's punching you in the stomach and you go out of your way to make sure they're happy. And I tend to go too far. I don't go too far. But as far as Vietnamese look at me in terms of taking care of customers that aren't happy, I'll do whatever it takes. And I think there's a very important message in that to anybody who's in the restaurant business in Vietnam. And they have to understand and not be afraid of the customer, not think the customer's there to trick them. Never distrust your customer. Give them the benefit of the doubt and work on the problem after they leave. I have never in 30 years had one customer trick me for any free meal my whole life. And I do it in Vietnam. If somebody calls up and says, I got your food delivered today and there's a hair in it, I'll find their phone number, call them and offer them the free dinner the next day. And my staff goes, but they're gonna find a free hair tomorrow. I'm like, no, they won't, and they never do. I think it's important to be generous. And I remember Ruth Reichel, she was a food writer for the New York Times. She said something that was very important to me years ago. The best chefs are the generous chefs. You can taste it in their food. You can feel it when you walk in a restaurant. And that's something I like to create. Generosity, being somebody who gives something without expecting something back. And I think that's true in all business.
What would you say that is your key to success?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm not a rich man, but I'm very happy with what I do. I love what I do. I opened a Vietnamese restaurant for Vietnamese customers, and it was the most difficult thing I ever did. And I closed it. But I'm not going to give up. I really want to see Vietnamese food mature because there's been no innovation in Vietnamese food for as long as I can look back. And I think in the climate of the history of Vietnam's never allowed it. They've been too busy doing other things to worry about creating new cuisine. But you have to think about it. Somebody made the first bun can. Somebody made the first bun sao. Somebody made the first cam tam. Someone was behind every single thing that you eat today. And a chef's legacy before they die is very simple. Create something that will be here after you leave. And I think that's why movie stars do movies. They want to be seen after they're long gone. Singers want to be heard after they die. Well, chefs want something that they do to be here after they go, a legacy. The man who invented the Caesar salad in Mexico, his salad is famous everywhere in the world.
Everywhere in the world.
And what an amazing accomplishment, that one thing he made one day for some people that came in and asked him to make a salad. He had nothing in his fridge, nothing in his kitchen. It was closed. He threw the salad together, and the next thing you know, 100 years later, it's the standard salad in every restaurant in the world.
Exactly.
That is a dream.
That is something that Vietnam might be lacking.
It is lacking, creativity and innovation.
What do you think of the chefs here in Vietnam?
I think they're not. I think there's two problems. One is they're not given the credit they deserve, so they lack motivation. They get stuck in this routine of what can I get, and what position am I? They're title driven and money driven. But I see a lot of them striving to cook the best food they can. They want to be celebrities. They want to be appreciated for their hard work, but the atmosphere is not there yet. But I do see the kind of the building of the storm of this next step of popular people in Vietnam will be chefs. And I think when a country modernizes like Vietnam is today, with the talk shows, the game shows, the TV shows, the programming is all extremely modern from 5 years ago. The next step will be the F&B, the food business, the independent restaurants.
The food.
Yeah, celebrity chefs, you know, got to go to this restaurant. It's fantastic. They don't cut corners. They don't use MSG. They don't use meat powders. They use everything natural. This is where Vietnam has to go.
Right. Quality is key.
Yeah, and I would love to be part of that. That's my dream. So.
Job has a particular love for the chả cá, or fish fillets that are grilled, then pan-fried, a specialty from Hanoi. Job's restaurant has another special food which you might never find anywhere else in this world, pizza chả cá. And behold, the pizza's chả cá.
It's a nice mixture of Vietnamese elements with some Western elements like the pizza dough, the mozzarella, and then you have the basil in the chả cá. I come here religiously, and I think it's a great restaurant.
For you, what cuisines in the world do you kind of admire?
Mexican, Vietnamese, Japanese.
Any favorites?
Well, if I were to eat one dish the rest of my life.
Yes, if you were on an island and you had no other food.
One thing for the rest of my life.
Yes.
Well, I'd eat fried chicken, but I can't do that because I'd be dead in a week and there'd be no point. But bún thịt nướng.
Bún thịt nướng.
I think the food in Central is probably the purest Vietnamese cuisine in Vietnam. It's the healthiest, and it's still protected from the influences of modern society. But when you look at bún thịt nướng, it's the essence of Vietnamese food right there in a bowl. It's got the fish sauce, the nước mắm, the nước chấm. It's got the peanuts. It's got the herbs. It's got the hot meat. It's got sometimes it's got the egg roll, you know, the imperial roll. So you bite into this and you get cold. You get the rice noodle. You get the crunchy. You get the hot. Everything to me is in that bowl. People say most famous food in Vietnam, oh, you know, it's pho. You know, I don't buy it. Actually, the most famous food in Vietnam to Vietnamese people is mì gói. It's instant noodles. They eat more of that than they eat pho in this country. So let's not look at what's popular. Let's think about what really epitomizes Vietnamese people in one dish.
Exactly.
And to me, it's bún thịt nướng.
I would guess the region that you think has the best food is the Central region.
Absolutely.
Hue.
Yeah, absolutely. Hue, Da Nang, Hoi An. I find the food in the Central to be, I think it's popular in Hanoi, it's popular in Saigon, in Ho Chi Minh, it's popular in Hue. That cuisine can travel anywhere without anybody's opinion. You bring a Saigon restaurant into Hanoi, it's difficult. You bring a Hanoi restaurant into Saigon, it's difficult. But you bring a Hue restaurant anywhere in Vietnam, it goes easy because it's so neutrally clean and pure, and unfortunately, Hue food is not in the world yet. It's not in the US, it's not in Europe. And I think to take Vietnamese food to the level of Japanese food in the world, which is the fame of Thai and Japanese, is to really focus on central food and taking that to the world, because that to me is the ambassador for Vietnamese food to take out.
How about living in the southern region? Do you have a preference for southern region food over the northern region? Because there's kind of a little bit competition there between the two sides.
There really is. You know, when I first came to Vietnam, I was in love with the food in Ho Chi Minh City, and I didn't care too much for the north. But over the years, with the introduction of meat powders into Vietnamese food, especially in the south, is destroying the food. And they're putting one particular meal on any given day. If you look at the staff meal or food for an office worker, you can have your soup, your can, it'll have meat powder. You can have your fish fried with lemongrass with meat powder. Why they put meat powder on fish is beyond me. They're not using fish sauce as they used to. They're using meat powders instead of fish sauce. So you're losing a whole dimension of Vietnamese food in the south.
So meat powders are like instant seasonings.
Instant seasonings. They're very popular. I don't see them as much here in the north as I do in the south. So I found the southern food has lost its taste. The products have lost its quality. The flavors have been lost. The lemongrass doesn't taste like lemon. The mint doesn't taste like mint. The chickens don't taste like chicken. So I came to Hanoi. I stay in Hanoi 2 weeks out of the month. And I fell in love with Vietnamese food again, because I was really losing my interest in Ho Chi Minh. I came up here to run Vine, and I started eating on the street, and I'm like, oh my God, a real tomato. Oh my God, real dill. Oh my God, this pineapple's incredible. So of course the Vietnamese food is going to be better in Hanoi, hands down. The south uses too much sugar. And now with the meat powder, they're destroying the cuisine down there. There are places to eat, but far and few. The center uses very little of any of it. They don't have to, because the dishes they use are very different. The north relies on broth, and broths tend to be the vehicle for MSG, for seasoning and saving money. So you get a lot of the meat chin, a lot of the pure MSG in the food in the north. But the pure MSG doesn't hide the taste of the food, it enhances it. Even though it's bad for you, it doesn't hide the taste, the high and low notes of Vietnamese food. Where the meat powders destroy all of the delicate lime leaf, the ginger, the mint, the lemongrass, all are wiped out for this taste of a potato chip or instant noodles.
Do you find that those are kind of the factors that render Vietnamese cuisine still not up there to the level of different world cuisines, and the fact that maybe that's why a Vietnamese restaurant owned by a local is still not yet listed up there?
Yeah, I mean, you won't see a Michelin star in Vietnam anytime soon, because there's a lot of missing components. But when you look at Vietnamese restaurants in California, for example, you have the best ingredients. You have a great meal, but they are afraid to use taste. In Vietnam, you have all the taste, but they're afraid to spend the money. So you have this gap. So it's going to take someone who's not afraid to spend the money and has the ingredients to do it here. Because you don't have the ingredients in Vietnam. The farmers markets are not here. You barely have enough product to get creative here. So it's holding the industry back. What has to happen is farmers have to start realizing that they can make more money growing yellow tomatoes and Mexican chilies than growing corn for the street vendors.
In terms of some of your kind of future plans, besides Black Cat, I know you have some other restaurants and also plans to open up different restaurants. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, I mean, I love creating concepts. So you know, if I get something done, I get bored fast. So I want to create something else. I think what I would really love to do is to, again, pursue what we're talking about, is to create a restaurant that can enable people to go to the U.S. in my sister restaurant. I'd like to create 2 restaurants, one here and one in LA or San Francisco. And I've got wonderful connections over there and over here. If I can create, let's say, restaurant XYZ and do very modern Vietnamese food and glorify Vietnamese culture in a very positive way, and take the staff here, bring them over to California, and take California staff
and bring them
here and have them work here. Because I can get kids out of cooking school and have them work here for a very good salary on an exchange program where they can learn about the culture, learn about the food, and then when you walk into the restaurant in Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi or wherever it may be, you'll be waited on by Western people, by the waiter, the bartender, the cooks will all be either African American or Mexican or Spanish or Indonesian, but they're going to be the melting pot of America, coming to Vietnam to learn Vietnamese food and show the Vietnamese staff here about Western service and Western food handling, and then take Vietnamese over to California and have them do Vietnamese food in California the way they know how, but with the influences of everything in the markets in California.
Exactly.
That is really what I would love to achieve.
Now, Vietnam, can Vietnam expect to have you around for a while? You mentioned earlier that you want to kind of stay here forever.
Yeah. I have a lovely new wife. I have a beautiful son. And so far I'm healthy and my businesses are going well. I live where I want to live. Then I am the luckiest guy in the world, sure.
We're now here in our little setup kitchen, and Jeff will show us how to make a very special dish. So tell us, Jeff, what will you make for us today?
Well, I'm going to make what we call the big cheese, which is the burger behind us.
Exactly.
But the idea is to make it a bit lighter for Vietnamese taste, because a lot of the times Vietnamese feel Western food can be heavy, and that's due to
cheese too.
Due to the cheese and mayonnaise and a bit heavy. So I was thinking this morning very early how to give the texture of cheese, but in a healthy way, and make it a little bit more Vietnamese. So I decided to basically use a fresh bun chang, a fresh rice wrapper, which is chewy and has the consistency of cheese.
Yep.
Actually, so it's soft, but then it's very healthy.
Exactly.
It's fat-free, there's no fat in this. So the idea was to make a flat spring roll. What we got is, typically all American burgers will have a pickle. Then we've got onion, which is a nice red onion, tomato, and lettuce. So onion, lettuce, tomato, pickles is like
your veggies in there.
Yeah, standard. It's like eating pho with the nha gai and the basil. So it's very standard.
How about over here?
Here we have our imitation cheese,
yes.
Vietnamese rice wrapper. We've got a 600-gram beef patty over here that's been fried, a little salt and pepper. And you got to remember, always season meat when you cook Western food. And then probably Vietnam's biggest hamburger bun. So this is a giant sesame seed bun that's been toasted. Go ahead.
What do we do first?
I'm going to put tomatoes around here. We're going to slice tomatoes thinly.
First layer.
Yeah, first layer will be tomato. And cut them thin because you don't want to have them too thick in there. We're going to lay those around the wrapper. You can use the dry rice wrapper and then spray water on after you fill it, and it'll actually become more tight. A little bit of onion. The onion gives it that little spiciness that we love in the burgers. And we put the onion here. Lots of colors, and again, very healthy. Burgers don't have to be those strange things that you can't recognize anything inside of them. So, and some pickle is a nice little sour aspect that will balance out the meat. I bake the bun with no sugar, so it's not sweet. Burgers should never be sweet, okay?
But it is properly seasoned.
Yes, salt and pepper. And then we'll take some lettuce and we'll put that around here.
Onto the lettuce, which gives it that fresh taste.
Yeah, nice crunch and lightens up the meat. So we'll put the little circle and we'll keep it round. You never know. So we're going to go ahead and put this on here, and then we put our patty on top. There's the 600 grams of American beef on top. And then at this point you can either put mayonnaise and mustard if you like, chili sauce, ketchup, whatever your choice is here. And then there's that giant burger right there.
Ta-ta!
So there it is.
Oh,
and this gives it a nice moisture, so I think this will come across really nicely. So.
Normally, when one of the customers come in, can they finish all of this spice? Oh, wow.
I've seen a young woman actually smaller than you eat one of these in 20 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
And
it definitely looks wonderful. Well, take a look at that, everyone. This is Jeff's creation of a burger, a cheeseburger, American cheeseburger, but without the cheese, the fake cheese, and combining it with the Vietnamese aspects of all of your veggies and the rice wrap, of course. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, for being here and sharing your stories with us, and also showing us how to cook a very special dish here. We hope you will have much success in all of your ventures in opening the restaurants, and that you'll continue in your journey to make cuisine here in Vietnam much better.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you here next time on Talk Vietnam. Goodbye for now.